Alright guys, so I've gotten a lot of questions about my uplights from eyourlife. I think there's a couple other sellers now on eBay selling essentially the same light. These are the 54 by 3 RGBW lights, and they're in a couple different body styles. The ones that are on the desk now, I've got two of the slim, like flat par style, and then I've also got the par kind of 56, par 64 size. They're essentially the same. The LED arrays and everything are the same on them, same power supply. These have two, I think 50 or 60 millimeter fans, one intake, one exhaust, whereas the other body style has a 120 millimeter fan, single. And they essentially just, both of them blow air across an aluminum plate that the LEDs are mounted to. So they're not, there's really no heat sinking under there, like there's no fins or anything other than the aluminum plate. But they've been really reliable. I haven't had really any LED dimming or anything like that with them. You can ignore the antennas on here. These have actually been modified for wireless usage, at least as far as the signal. I still use all powered fixtures for the majority of things. No, they've been really good lights. The convergence on them is good. There's a little bit of haloing with them. It's to be expected, with the layout of your LEDs, especially with the green ones around kind of the outside. You'll get a pretty uniform center, but then out to the outer edges, especially when your whites are not on, you're going to get a little bit of a green kind of haloing. Same thing if they're right up against a wall. The lower portion, at least, like the lower maybe a couple of feet, might have a little bit of green fringe on the outside of the projected pattern up the wall for uplighting. So I know a few people have asked, about mastering and slave. I haven't had an issue with mastering and slave. Obviously, I use primarily a controller with them, and the controller works really well. I've got my brightness fader. These are not video safe lights necessarily. Right now I'm shooting at 5.6 aperture, and my shutter speed is about 30 frames a second. When I start to get either really low in the dimming, or especially when the entire room is lit with them, as it is now. The only thing here, the two lights on the desk you see are lighting up the whole room right now, bounced off the ceiling. As you can kind of see, it gets pretty dark. But when I'm around 50 to 60 frames a second, I start to get a little bit of kind of the rolling shutter look, the lines on there. When these are dimmed. When they're at full brightness, obviously I don't run into any problems. Most venues I run these at full brightness, other than whatever I need for the color mixing. As you can see, full on, I've got gray walls, but full on RGBW, they're a little blue. They're a very cool white. So I just kind of modify that down to where I want for my warmer white, or it's really not too bad just using just the white LEDs. So the fade in, fade out, and everything on them is pretty good. There's a last little bit where everything kind of goes nuts. So it doesn't keep your color ratio. It keeps only what you've set the levels to. So if you've got like one set for 240 and then another color set for 255, when you get to 15, the one that was set for 240 is going to go off. So you get a little bit of color shift as you fade out if you've got, unless everything's at full or you're only running one color, you get kind of a last little bit where one of the colors or multiple of the colors will turn off before the other ones, and your colors will shift drastically. Once again, you know, these are not a high-end theatrical light. They're not, you know, an all-in-one, like a common 5 or 6, like a hex LED. But for what they are, you know, I found it to be fantastic. They're extremely reliable so far. Used them for quite a few events. I love the double yoke on them. So, you know, your channels are pretty standard. You've got your fade here, and then you've got your red, your green, your blue. So that's channels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Your channel 5 is your white. I'm not sure the purpose of channel 6 yet. I've not really been able to figure out a use for it. The only thing it ever seems to do is turn the light to red. I don't know why, regardless of what color it is on. So then your channel 7 is going to be your strobe speed, with 255 being your fastest and 0 being no strobe, off, steady, on. So they're fairly standard, especially in the world of lighting, which I like. You know, it's not, they didn't reverse and do like a BGR or something. So it makes them really compatible with a lot of other fixtures, other than maybe the placement of the master fade channel. So I've got these set up with the board right now, but I wanted to go over the menus are pretty good on here. What I'm going to do right now is just go ahead and turn off my board, unplug the DMX signal at least. So the menu blacks out, which is fantastic because you don't have a whole lot of screens up on a truss or something displayed. And you know, especially in a really dark area, you don't have like that weird red kind of glow from under each of the fixtures. So this is your Dmx screen. Depending on what screen you're on, your D is going to be your Dmx address. Adjust pretty standard up and down. You don't have to hit enter or anything. It just kind of stays where it is. And then your next screen is going to be your program 1. And then you've got your speed 0 to 255. This goes between the colors, and it's a quick jump between pre-programmed colors. You've got a yellow in there, an aqua in there, so it's not just the RGBW, and it hops from one color to the other. Your L right here is going to be your second program, and this one is a fade. Speed it up a little bit. And this one fades between colors. So the same color pattern that it jumped to before, but you're going to fade in one, and then it kind of fades so it does a nice smooth transition on there. Your E is a very interesting one. It does the same thing as the previous two, except it fades in a color and then fades that color out before fading in the next one. So it doesn't really transition. It's a really interesting effect, though, if you've got, you know, if you've got it on a pretty fast transition. And then you have, of course, your sound mode. The mic's kind of the right amount of sensitivity. It is not adjustable, so you really need some pretty good bass or something to kick these, but they're tuned well. They really only pick up the low frequencies. You know, I've got some ADJ, the old PAR 64 LEDs that can be a bit oversensitive. And then you've got, of course, your red, your green, your blue, and your white adjustments. So that's just if you want to match these to another lighting fixture and you're a slight bit off, you can adjust when everything's full on exactly what color that creates. or if you want a very specific color, like a steady color without a controller or something. And then, of course, you've got your strobe mode on here. Back to your DMX. The DMX control on here, you know, really nice and adjustable. The slave will work with, go ahead and plug these back in and get some lights. So the slave on here does not have to be set at channel 1, as long as it's set to the same DMX channel that the master is. It understands everything perfectly, same colors, same programs, which is great too, because if you've got multiple fixtures on one DMX line, and you want some of them like in a sound active or a continuous kind of slow color scroll, but you want to have some sort of control or blackout over either the slaves or over like your other fixtures on there, you can, and you can shift these around so they're not interfering. Hopefully you don't have any of the old, like really old fixed address or the smaller fixed address lights, so that you shouldn't need to really avoid them. But I know some people in their programming like to have, you know, their pars in a certain range, their moving heads in a certain range, things like that. So as long as the master and slave are on the same channel, first channel assignment, they work really well. The lighting on output on these is phenomenal. I've never had a problem with them being, you know, too dim or anything, especially up lights. 12, 15-foot ceilings, not a problem. I actually have a blizzard light. I'll bring in here. This is one of the original blizzard pucks with the 10mm RGB LEDs. These give me fits. I've actually retired them now because they're a good light. They're very well built, but especially when you're using wireless that have a transceiver that auto selects, when these don't sense a DMX signal, when they're not locked on, they revert to their own program internally. So I've had issues with this outputting like a master slave and actually sending DMX data to my other lights, and you know, you have moving heads moving all over the place because they're receiving a 0 to 255 that this thinks is blue, but it's actually one of the Yolk channels. So the other thing is that when these lose power and they come back up, there really is no way to set them permanently on DMX, so they automatically go into their pre-programmed modes. At least mine have so far. You know, I haven't found a way necessarily to get around it. So what ends up happening with them is I got my power pulled one time by someone doing a final vacuum of the facility, and when that happened and it was plugged back in, these reverted to their standard programs, and they were up on a truss, and I had to climb up a ladder to reset them to DMX and power everything up in the right order. So these do not. These, the 54x3s at least, they stay exactly where you put them. You unplug them, you cut power to them, plug them back in. Same channel assignment, same mode as what you started off in. So whatever your last mode was, that's what it reverts to, which is phenomenal. You know, I know a lot of lights are getting smarter. I don't want smart lights. I want dumb lights that are controllable and work when I want them to. The only thing with these that I found as a downside is the fan noise. As I said, they have an intake and an exhaust on these, and then the other ones have 120 mil. They move a lot of air. You can actually, if you hold a piece of paper up to it, you can kind of see it blow, because they put out a lot of heat. You know, very bright LEDs, but they can also be very noisy, especially you get like 24 of these in a room, 30 of these in a room, and it is definitely an audible fan noise versus like the Blizzard pucks or something like that, where they're completely passive. But for the brightness of light, I can't complain too much. That's kind of the nature of the beast, is you get a little bit of background noise, but with most things, when the PA's going, if you've got a DJ or a band or something, or especially if they're pretty far away or out against the walls in a big venue, you're not going to notice it that much. There really isn't a reason to worry there. But if you're in a really quiet environment, like maybe an extremely quiet moment for a ceremony or something, and you're using, say, just the white uplights on draping, you may hear the kind of whirring of fans, like almost like when one of the facility air conditioners kicks on. You're going to hear that kind of wind noise. So I haven't run into too many problems with them. There isn't a manual, so you have to kind of figure out features and things on your own and what they do. I've got quite a few of these now, and haven't had a problem with them. eyourlife has been great. I had a problem with one of the fixtures, as you can see in one of my other videos, where I had a transformer noise. When it was on full, I got a very bad kind of buzzing from the light. I sent them a video, and they sent out another light really quickly. Super turnaround time, phenomenal service. Responded really fast to emails and everything as well. So I'm happy with these, especially for the price. I don't have to worry a ton about them. Somebody spills a drink on them or something, inevitably, it's not the end of the world if they're toast, versus, a $1,000 light or something, which I would hope would be IP rated, but a lot of people aren't using those quite yet. So, great light for the money, great for what it is, fantastic brightness. You do get a little bit of that color fringing, a little bit of the rainbowing, as is to be expected. It's definitely not as bad as a 10mm light, but it's, once again, not as good as like a hex light or something like that. But phenomenal light for the money. I love the dual yokes and everything on here with them. So I hope that answers at least most of the questions I've gotten so far, for anybody looking at these or anything kind of like that. If you guys have any other questions or anything that you want to know about them, or any features, testing, things like that, just shoot me a line in the comments section or something, and I'll see what I can do, see if I can work with them, play with them a little bit, or figure something out. So, all right, thanks guys.